right, so this is the video on page 218 where we are finding the slope between 2 points. So we went over the slope formula in class, but just to go over it again, your slope, your m value is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's that slope formula that we want to use. So what we're going to do to find the slope, first we're going to identify what is our x1, y1, x2, y2. So I always just take the first point, label that x1 and y1, and then the other one is x2 and y2. So whichever one you label x1 has to go with y1. Yeah, these go together, and then whatever you label x2, then that next number is our y2 value. So then I'm just going to fill those numbers in here. So y2 is 6 minus, and then y1 is negative 7 over x2 is negative 1 minus x1 is 2. So I just plugged in those numbers, right? y2 was 6, so I put 6 first. There's always a minus sign between them. So if it's also negative, you have to write y1 was negative 7, so I'd write minus 7 next to that negative. So now I'm going to do 6 minus negative 7, which if you remember from subtracting integers, we would do keep this positive 6, change your subtraction to addition, and then change the sign. So it would go from negative 7 to a positive 7. So then I have 6 plus 7 at the top, which would give me 13. So my numerator, or the top number, is 13. Then I also have negative 1 minus 2. So again, with our subtracting integers, we would keep, change this minus to addition, and then change positive 2 to negative 2. So then I have negative 1 plus negative 2. They're the same sign, so I would add them together. 1 plus 2 would give me 3, and then I keep the sign. So my slope, and it doesn't matter where this negative goes. It can go at the bottom, it can go at the top, it can go in the middle, but my slope is negative 13 over 3. And we will leave it as a fraction. We don't want decimals when we're talking about slope. We don't want mixed numbers when we're talking about slope. We want a fraction because that's going to come into play when we graph. So let's look at a couple more together. So again, the first thing we're going to do is label the points. So we're going to label the first one x1, y1. Second one, x2, y2. Remember, every ordered pair has an x and a y value. The x value always comes first. That's why we label it x1, then y1. So now we're going to plug it into our equation. So we do y2 minus y1. So y2 is 6 minus y1 is 3. Then we're going to do x2 minus x1. So x2 is 7 minus, and then our x1 is negative 3. So when I do this, at the top I have 6 minus 3, that's easy. 6 minus 3 is positive 3. And then at the bottom I have 7 minus negative 3. So remember, when you're subtracting with these different signs, we can keep the first term, change our minus to plus, change our negative to a positive, right? Keep, change, change. So now I have 7 plus positive 3, which would give me 10. And then I can't reduce the fraction, so I would just leave it as 3 over 10. Remember, with slope, no decimals, no mixed numbers. So we would leave it just like that, 3 over 10. All right, let's try another one. So first we label this x1, y1, label this x2, y2, and then we plug it into our equation. So we're going to do y2 minus y1. So we do y2 minus y1, so negative 6 minus, and then y1 is negative 9. And then x2 would be 5 minus, and then x1 was negative 1. So now when I solve these, again, I'm subtracting. So I have negative 6 minus negative 9, so I'm going to keep the negative 6, change my minus to a plus, change my negative 9 to a positive 9. So then negative 6 plus 9, they're different signs. So I have to subtract. 9 minus 6 would give me 3. And then I have to keep the sign of the larger number. So this positive 9 is bigger, so that means my answer is going to be positive 3. So then we're going to do the same thing for the denominator. I'm subtracting, so I'm going to do keep, change my subtraction to addition, change my negative 1 to a positive 1. So then I have 5 plus 1 would give me 6. Now again, we're not going to turn this into a decimal, but we could reduce this fraction, which we want to do when we're talking about slope. So when I have 3 over 6, I could divide the top and the bottom by 3. 3 divided by 3 would give me 1. 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. So my fraction is 1/2. So that slope would be 1/2. Okay, another way that we talked about in class is the dot and arrow method. So I can go over using that method as well. So you're going to start at the back x value, draw a dot, and you're going to arrow it to the front x value. So that would tell you that you're going to do -5 minus -4, and then you're going to do the same thing with the y value. You're going to put a dot on the last y value, and then you're going to subtract the first y value. So I did -5 minus -4 and 8 minus 9, and then we simplify just like we did above. So with my subtraction, I can do keep. So I keep -5. I change subtraction to addition. I change this negative to a positive. So I have -5 plus 4. A negative and a positive means we're going to subtract. So 5 minus 4 would give me 1. And then we keep the sign of the bigger number. So since 5 is bigger and negative, my answer would be negative. Remember, you can also check all your answers with a calculator. So then the next part I'm going to do is 8 minus 9. So again, I'm going to change subtraction to addition, and then I'm going to change the sign of my positive 9 to -9. So now I have different signs. So again, I'm going to subtract. 9 minus 8 gives me 1, and then I keep the sign of the bigger number, which is a negative. So my answer is going to be negative. So now the only thing we could simplify here, with slope, we want to keep the fraction, right? 1 over 1 is just 1. But for slope purposes, we like having the fraction. But since we have two negatives, a negative and a negative is going to be a positive 1 over 1.
Excuse me.
Sorry for the announcement going on here while you're at home. But let's do the dot and arrow method one more time, or a couple more times. So remember, we put a dot on that y value, and we draw it to the other y value. So we have -1 minus -3. And then we put a dot on the x value and arrow it over to the other x value. So then we do -7 minus 8. And it doesn't matter which x and y value you put the dot on. It just needs to be the pair, right? Both of these are getting the dot. Both of these are getting the arrow. So if you go the other way, that's fine too. But just make sure that one pair of them has the dot, which means the other pair gets the arrow. All right, so now when I simplify, I'm going to do -1 minus -3. So I'm going to do keep -1, change subtraction to addition, change my -3 to a +3. So now I have -1 plus +3. They are different signs, so I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 1 would give me 2. And then I keep the sign of the larger number. So since 3 is bigger and positive, then my answer is going to be a +2. So now I'm going to do the same. I'm going to simplify the bottom. -7 minus 8, I can do keep -7, change this to addition, change this to a -8. So then -7 plus -8, they are the same sign, so I add. 7 plus 8 is 15, and I keep the sign. Again, it does not matter where that negative, when there's one negative, it doesn't matter where it ends up. So I write this as -2 over 15 as my slope. Again, we do not reduce for decimals, we leave it as a fraction. All right, one more time. I draw my dot on my y value. I draw it to the other y value. I draw my dot on my x value. I draw it to the other x value. So now I'm going to do 6 minus 3, y minus y. So 6 minus 3 over 2 minus -5. So now when I simplify, 6 minus 3 gives me 3. 2 minus -5, we're going to do keep, change this to positive, change the sign. So then I have 2 plus +5, same sign, so we add them together. 2 plus 5 is 7, and they're both positive, so we keep it positive. I cannot reduce 3 over 7, so I keep that as my answer. Yeah, so there's just 2 ways that you can solve slope. Both of them work every time, so whichever method you like better is the one you can use. So now you should be able to finish the rest of this page.